What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of the Long Run Podcast. Once again, I'm joined by some of my favorite people in the entire world to continue our series of reviews on Cobra Kai, the spiritual successor to Karate Kid, and in honor of Mr. Miyagi, of course. Joining me today is every single person that you know and love from the previous reviews. We got the band back together. I don't want to say one last time because we know there's another season, but hey, we got the band back together. And of course, joining me today, we have Mark. He's returning, always. He's a staple of the Long Run Podcast. And he certainly is going to have some opinions about Cobra Kai Season 3, that's for sure. How you doing, man?
Pretty good. How you been?
I've been good, man. Good to hear your voice again, brother.
Same.
All right, and next to him, of course, is Andrew, the fan who graduated to being a consistent member of the podcast, also loves Cobra Kai. How are you today?
I'm doing amazing.
Good to hear from you again, man. Of course, we have the voice of the people and of the absolute biggest Karate Kid fan here. It is Padromi. How you doing?
What's going on?
Good to hear from you, man. I'm glad you're here. And of course, rounding it out, the most dedicated person on this podcast, live from her car, it is Abby. How are you doing today?
Live from the valley, it's Abby.
Yeah, she's this is her method acting. She wanted to make sure that it was just like
I'm in the valley.
Yeah. No, yeah. she's actually in the plaza where Cobra Kai, the dojo
I'm
is.
scouting out the locations. Isn't it in Georgia?
I have no
Right?
idea.
Where do they film?
I have no idea. That's a great question. Well, so I guess let's just summarize, right? So season 1, I'm pretty sure all of us we all love season 1. Season 2, we were all like, yeah, it was good. Maybe not as good as season 1, but it was pretty good. But now we're in season 3, and I guess I'll just start straight up say it. Like, what did you guys think of season 3 of Cobra Kai?
Chaotic.
I'll let you guys go first.
Oh, go ahead.
No,
I was gonna say chaotic.
yeah, I was gonna follow with. It was a lot going on. Yeah, it really stretched the truth, if you will.
The truth?
Yeah, just like for what it is, it really just like took it pretty far for me. Like in terms of reality versus
okay.
90s karate
Okay.
series,
I get what you're saying.
Like,
I get what you're saying.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I would definitely say that this season, more than anyone, completely shows that Cobra Kai does not take place in our reality whatsoever. How did you feel about it? Or Andrew, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, first of all, comparing it to previous seasons, I think it's a step up from season 2.
Interesting.
However, there were times where I was kind of like, all right, this is getting a little too predictable and somewhat even cornier than season 2.
Oh, yeah.
And I wasn't as impressed as I was with season 1. Like, season 1 just was hands down the best. There's no question about it.
Sure.
Season 3 was, like, better than season 2, but, like, all right, like, how on earth are they going to continue this for another season?
Sure. So I guess, like, with that being said, and of course, Mark, we'll get to you in one sec. I think once we get through this overview, we'll kind of just get into the nitty gritty. But Mark, round us off. How did you feel overall about this season?
So, like, season 1, I think, is the best. Because you look at season 1, and it feels like it's just a really solid Karate Kid soft reboot.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if season 1 was a movie, then it's like, oh, that's a good movie. That's a good soft reboot.
Right.
I think season 3 might be my favorite. It's not quite as good as season 1, quality-wise.
Interesting.
It's all over the place. It gets very, very silly. The suspension of disbelief is stretched paper thin. But man, I had a lot of fun with this season. I liked this one a lot.
That's interesting. Now, Abby, you and I talked a little bit right before this,
Yeah.
how we felt. So I'm really interested now, considering it seems like you have a wide range of opinions. But how are you feeling overall?
Oh, I'm completely on the same boat where it's like I've accepted we've gone into madness, so I'm just here for the ride.
Exactly.
Oh, this is going to be a good review. Keep going, Abby.
Is that my review? I think that's my log line for the season. Because I agree that season 2, I was like, we were, first one, excellent, supreme. Second one, getting a little bit off the rails. And so again, they had 2 directions to take it, and they took it completely in the direction they took it. And my biggest strength, I do have to say, I think of the series is when it brings in the franchising of these overwhelming elements. I do think that's its strength, to go and wink at the audience and be like, hey, you remember Japan? We're there. Yeah. And it does that. And this was like, when it knows it's being campy, that's when it does its best. And when it tries to be serious, it reminds me of like the CW, which I don't love.
Yes.
All
No,
right.
CW is a great way to put it. That was my issue with season 2, is it felt like it was... The first one was like a fun, kind of tongue-in-cheek 80s throwback. Season 2 felt like it was straying more into like tween drama territory.
Yeah.
This one, it jerks the wheel back into full-on 80s camp.
Definitely.
We got all kinds of action and fun.
This is going to be an interesting review for sure, because I think we have a lot wider of opinions, wide range of opinions here. So, of course, now season 3, season 1 and 2 were both on YouTube Red, or whatever they called it, and now it's transferred over to Netflix. And I believe this is the first season completely only for Netflix, and obviously they're going to be making a couple more. I didn't notice anything like particularly different. Maybe it looked a little bit higher production, but it seemed the same to me. But it shows, right, just how successful the series was that Netflix kind of jumped on it. When we got into this season, we left off season 2 on that cliffhanger, right, where there was like a gang war at the school. Sorry, I mean a karate fight. And Miguel is in the hospital. Robbie ran away. What's her name? The daughter, Samantha, has PTSD from the incident. Johnny is trying to figure out his life. Same old. And
yeah, what's
course,
her name?
Yeah, and of course, Daniel is still trying to figure out what to do without Miyagi, because my God, he's like 40 years old and he still hasn't figured it out. So there's a lot kind of going on as we get into this season. But I think the first one that I really want to focus on is Daniel's journey, because I feel like, especially for the first couple episodes, there's a heavy emphasis on his journey. And of course, the first person I have to ask here is Andrew, because I know you had a lot of thoughts on Daniel the first 2 seasons. So how did you feel kind of about these first couple episodes that really focused on him and what he's trying to go through, what he's trying to overcome overall?
Well, first of all, I like how he went back to Japan to kind of like learn the style, like learn what kind of... I think he felt like he lost part of himself and he wanted to go on his own journey, which, I mean, I love the fact that he did that. And then he met Kumiko again, I think, right?
Yep.
And I love that whole like flashback thing. And then he met his rival. What was it, Chosen or something? Or what was it?
I forget how exactly you say his name, but I know who you're talking about.
Yeah. So
Chosen.
Yeah.
Chosen.
I like that whole like reenactment with each other, the characters and stuff like that. I just I don't know if Daniel was on the brink of almost cheating though. It looked like they had like
Absolutely.
it looked like there was like sparks flying, and like Daniel was like, am I with the wrong woman back at home? Like I didn't know what was going on at first. But I love the fact that Chosen kind of taught him new stuff. And that the rivalry between them two is like, over, and they're maybe necessarily not friends, but they're on good terms. So
Sure.
I did appreciate that. I like the whole journey that he went to with Japan. Kind of confused of what's going on with him and his ex-girlfriend Kumiko.
Yeah, that was a little weird. We'll talk about that for sure. But keep going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I appreciated that whole moment that he went back to Japan, kind of like finding himself and almost reinventing himself.
For sure. Now, Padromi is a huge fan of the entire Karate Kid series. I'm sure you really enjoyed the throwback to Karate Kid Part 2. I know I did. How did you feel about that whole sequence, especially given that you already knew what happened? Same thing with you, about Abby. I know that you were a big proponent of how it tied back into that.
Oh, yeah.
I'll go for Abby.
Oh, I was just going to say, I thought it was really nice. And I was curious. Again, we could talk about this. I don't know about. Did we talk about this in the first 2 episodes about Daniel's ethnicity?
I don't think we
No.
ever did. But
Yeah.
continue, please.
Yeah, and you were like a little curious because growing up, he was kind of like ambiguous. I feel safe saying like he was Italian, but I didn't really know because he was. If you're talking about just like it just is interesting, like an Italian family, and kind of I was curious about in conjunction to Johnny, who look blonde and blue eyed, like very California, and even though they're both still white, which is I guess kind of interesting, and then also doing like this East Asian art form. But I thought it was interesting how I did think they paid homage to it, and I think they kind of poked fun at the fact a little bit that he's kind of like now this like Italian like dad, like American dad trying to learn when he was with Chosen, like back in Japan. Do you know what I mean? Because it was like he's cool. He's he's our badass. He's the Daniel, but also that we've grown older. We see ourselves, we see our bodies in different lights as we age.
Right.
And I thought that was interesting, and like I said, in connection with Japan. And so they did kind of think where it was like he had done business with them. I thought it was done tastefully. And then getting there and like paid homage to like just how beautiful it is. Like there's some points. Did they film there? Because there's some points when they're outside, like external.
It does look like it's on
they did.
location, but I'm not 100% on that.
It was just really beautiful, and so I'm glad that they went back to that. I don't know. For me, it's like, what are the roots of martial art? And it is East Asia, and so I think that was nice to see instead of again the strip mall. There's like this big spiritual element.
Oh, it was so funny. I thought that was so funny.
That part.
He's coming in like, yeah, I can't wait to go like get really connect with
Get
myself.
away from it.
Yeah, like I just really need to get away. He goes and there's like a mini mall. It's like
Yeah.
Wasn't that what did they have there? Was it like a KFC or something? They had some kind of like chain restaurant. It was like,
It's like I can't wait to go back to the village and get back to my roots. It's just a mini mall. I thought it was so funny.
It was great. It was a great little reveal.
It was, yeah. And it's like, oh, look at commercialization here. Versus, when the sequel took place. I don't know. I thought that was quirky and fun.
I agree.
And it's true. So I enjoyed that.
I like that too, because it's like it's a fun gag, but it also kind of ties into the whole theme of like trying to move on from the past and all that.
Right.
Where it's like the whole show is about two grown men who are obsessed over what they did in high school.
Yeah, but to that
karate
point,
was the shit, and I was the shit back then, and this was the coolest village, and then he gets there in the strip mall, and it's like, oh, what happened?
Yeah, but to that
That's
point,
the show.
we talked about Danny's journey to the past of second movie, but Johnny has his whole thing going on that ties all the way back to the second film, also, right?
Right.
With his lady.
Oh, yeah.
So like, I thought they did a really nice job bringing both of those pieces together.
That
And
film hackneyed.
Yeah. Absolutely agree.
Absolutely agree. But I really also enjoyed watching Danny go back to Japan. I think all the touches to the clips from the previous films and all those things. Even seeing the little girl who he saved, now grown.
Yeah.
Like all those little things. Were really touching pieces that they added in. I did like the scene between him and Chosen over the scroll, and the teachings of Miyagi-Do. And then kind of like that realization, like how much deeper those teachings actually are and how much more connected karate was, to many other masters and such.
Yeah.
I thought that was really a really beautiful way to kind of like tie it together. And again, once again, paying homage to Miyagi himself throughout that whole scene, the whole episode, rather, excuse me.
Yeah.
And also like the way of life, kind of like it almost like reset it. Danny a little bit. You saw like particularly like the airport scene where like he's like kind of freaking out, and it's just like Chosen's like, yo, like it's gonna be fine, like
Yeah.
either way. And I really did enjoy that a lot.
Yeah, there's a lot of really good things about the entire, I guess, sequence, whatever you want to call it. There are a couple things where this was definitely during the season where I started to notice, like, okay, I think we're starting to get out of reality here, because it's just like, oh wow, so the strip mall that he just so happens to get off at, that the taxi driver drops him off at, is just so happens to be the exact time that Kumiko is having a show, and it just so happens that it's like, all right, okay,
It's all too perfect.
yeah,
Yeah.
of course. And I think the letter that she read to Daniel that Miyagi sent was like a really good scene, because like it showed how
Mhm.
isolating it was. I do feel like
Yeah.
it was a little rushed, the entire ordeal, because it was like Danny gets there, he finds them, and like everyone just tells him what to do instead of him like genuinely earning it, kind of thing. But like, I don't know. This is like the weird part too, because of what we've all been saying. It's just like it doesn't take place in reality. So who am I to like
No,
be able to be like, yes,
not
this
at
doesn't
all.
make sense. I did think
If we're talking about reality,
yeah.
the very fact that Miguel comes back in the
We'll
season,
talk about that. We'll talk about that. 'Cause I have thoughts. Trust me, we'll talk about that. But no, the one thing I did also want to point out to you is like I did think it was a little weird how they like kind of tried to play like a little bit that they still had feelings for each other. Each other. And I was like, Daniel, you're married, man. I don't know what you're trying to do here, but okay. Thought it was a little strange, but it was okay. But one thing that
Danny
Mark,
about to risk it all for a one-way
Oh.
ticket to save his dealership.
oh my god,
they
But-
both had those moments though.
yeah,
They
Like, with-
did.
they did.
They both
Yeah.
had those moments like, should I go back with this girl? Like, kind of like choose, like trying to decide on where to go and everything. I was like, what
I
the
think
heck is
it's
going
more
on?
just the like, oh, I'm last time I saw this person, they were a romantic interest, and it was like
Sure.
20 years ago, and now we're approaching middle age. No, that's a little strange. Like it's that kind of, I think it's just that kind of, almost class reunion mentality.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
And
Where
the
it's
one thing,
like I never thought Danny would do anything about it.
it's
the
definitely
one
not that
that-
kind of show. Definitely not.
Exactly. It's I actually, there's a similar situation, maybe not to get ahead of ourselves, but when Allie was introduced, where I thought that kind of attitude worked very, very effectively, where it was like, oh, what's Johnny gonna do?
Right. Yeah, we'll talk about that, because I love
Yeah,
that part
we'll
too.
get to that.
But one
I
thing,
did like that part.
Exactly what you think
Interesting.
he was gonna do. Let's be honest here.
one thing I did want to touch on though before we get to the next part is just Mark talked about how this introduces one of the themes of the show, which is kind of like dealing with your past, overcoming your past. And there's one thing I think this does very well, but also just the entire season, is that it's a season filled with consequences, and like your actions and the consequences of them, right? And how you deal with that, right? So we saw that how again, it was really convenient, but technically it was a consequence of how Daniel saved that girl, and she just so happened to be the person to give him the Hail Mary to save his dealership. Like, yes, that was unbelievably convenient, but it does show that everything that happened in the past has led to here, and how they're all kind of dealing with that. And I think so much of this season is about that, right? And in a lot of the different characters' journeys. And while it's uneven, I think it's undeniable that a lot of the show is about that. And I think, as much as I think it doesn't take place in any sort of reality, I do like that theme overall.
Mm.
Did anyone else have anything you want to say about Daniel's journey before he flies back and tries to save his dojo? Okay.
His dealership, not the dojo.
Well,
Yeah.
both.
Well, both.
Yeah, I guess that's fair.
Yeah.
Is that how it works with I guess you have a manufacturer and I know nothing about cars.
I'll be honest.
so
It wouldn't surprise me if they completely made up how actual car dealerships work.
Okay.
I mean, it worked.
Yeah.
Okay.
They have to get the cars from somewhere.
It wasn't like there was a point where I was like, okay, that's definitely not how that works, but I could never tell you if that's actually the reality of car dealership business or anything.
It's dramatic.
Uh-huh.
Well, we'll have to ask Austin next time we see him.
I don't think that's how karate works either, but it's dramatic.
Definitely. And one thing I did want to touch on too, at Padromi, I think you talked about this too, is that like for a long time, Miyagi-Do karate was like almost like too pacifist. It was just like, yes, we're only going to
Yeah.
ever defend ourselves. It's like the true the true nature of martial arts is just that sometimes you're going to have to like use deadly force kind of thing, and not necessarily like kill someone or something, but like there's only so much you can do just by blocking or hitting someone just a little bit harder. And I'm glad that they acknowledge that, right? And it's almost like one of those things where they acknowledge the imperfections of what Danny thought was once a perfect mantra, mythology, whatever you want to call it.
And I don't mean to sound like the crazy person who's like, everyone's too binary nowadays. We're all extremists. But I think this was a really good example of being like, oh, we can't just, sit on our butts and let everything happen to us. Because then nothing's going to happen.
Right.
And that so I think it was a pretty good being like, there is a middle ground.
It
For both of
endured
them.
Miyagi though to me a lot more because I felt like it was much too like, okay, Cobra Kai is self-defense and Miyagi though is like platitudes while sitting under a tree. And it's like, no, this is self-defense. This is made to mess people up. You don't learn to punch to never punch somebody. And I think this added a lot more active philosophy rather than just passive philosophy to the whole thing. And we say that pay off at the very end.
Absolutely, yeah. So while we move away from Daniel's initial journey, and let's go to, I think everyone on this podcast's favorite character, Johnny. Johnny,
Hands down.
he had an interesting season, definitely. We ended the cliffhanger, right? I'm pretty sure this is the end of season 2, right? Was where Allie texts him back on
What a
Facebook or
strong
whatever.
cliffhanger.
Yeah. So he definitely goes through a lot, even though I think a lot of the season is just him and Miguel doing like a completely different show of like shenanigans and random adventures. Still, I think he did a lot of cool stuff. So I'd love to hear how all of you feel about Johnny and like what he had to kind of go through this season, because I would say that he actually gets a lot of the dramatic. I don't know if weight is the right word, but there's a lot of drama that
Yeah.
happens, right? Because he has to not only confront his past in Alley, but also he has to confront his teacher too, who was like a father figure to him, and
Right.
kind of overcome that. So there's a lot of things going on with him.
He's given a lot to do because the last season finale brought him to a lower point than the first episode, where the whole point of the first episode is Johnny's a loser and his life is shit. But now his life is even worse, and so now when he gradually crawls his way back up, like I loved the whole montage of him trying to help Miguel with his physical with his
Oh
rehab.
God.
Literally, like, come on, literally lighting a fire under his ass. That's
I
great.
couldn't believe everyone. Well, we could talk about
Putting a
that right
porno
now.
mag on a fishing pole, that was phenomenal. I love that
Well,
whole
this-
thing.
this
That
is
whole
def-
sequence was gold.
This is definitely the
It was
part
great.
where I was just like, all right, this doesn't take place in any sort of reality. Like it's
No,
like
not at all.
it's like yes,
No, but it's cool.
no, it's hilarious.
It's
Like
so cool.
my favorite part is that it wasn't physical therapy or medical science that healed Miguel. It was the power of rock. Like come on,
It was
guys.
all, man, it was pure Dragon Ball Z. Just really want it, and you'll become stronger.
like no disrespect to D. Snyder. He's a great musician. I like his music. Twisted Sister has some great songs, but it was definitely not what I was expecting to cure Miguel of all people, and his completely traumatic, debilitating injury. But
Right.
how did you all feel though? Like, getting back to the whole Johnny thing and what he had to go through this season.
Well, what I just like about Johnny, Johnny and the Hawk, at least for me, in my point of view, they're the most relatable and well-developed characters. Speaking of Johnny right now, he went from, at the beginning of season 1, he had pretty much nothing. He had pretty much no money. He was living in a crappy apartment, still is. Pretty much like reflecting on the past and hating his life and all that. Then he gains something. He gains, a student who he thinks of kind of like a son that he never had. Someone that he really wants to teach the very best of what he learned in Cobra Kai. Pretty much help him in his life. And then he has a thing with Miguel's mom, and he gains lots of respect with new students, and then he loses everything, pretty much what he gained, and he goes back into the sinkhole. And I like the fact that he met up with Allie again, kind of like a little bit of a romance sparking sparking up again, which I really it was kind of like a good nostalgia.
Mhm.
But there's part of Johnny that just can't let her go, and there's part of Johnny that can't let Johnny go either. And you see that when he gets like jealous of that one guy. I forgot his name. Well, actually, it was just a random guy, wasn't it?
I think so. I don't.
He loses it or something like that.
Mhm.
Yeah. So like Johnny has a lot to grow, but towards the end, like you see him like fully like developed. But I did like the whole chemistry thing with him and Allie again, and I thought that was nice. But for me, I think he does better with Miguel's mom.
Yeah.
Jeremy or Abby, how did you all feel about Johnny this season and what he had to go through?
I felt so bad. Like, honestly, like that's you know what, and I'm a huge person of like, character development and strife builds, dynamic, nuanced characters. I honestly, there's a trope, a narrative trope, they call it the butt monkey, which is such a sad saying, but like, Johnny is the butt monkey, and he's the punching bag, and it just is so unfortunate. So for this season, at least for me, I mean, I don't say tragic figure, since the ending, but we'll talk about that later.
Mhm.
But it just feels so almost unnecessary at this point, because it's like you make the villain pay for their misdeeds because you want justice, and I'm like, I feel like I've gotten that with like, I don't, it's like, why?
Right.
Because originally, right, if you're talking about the first season, it's like we want to see people, in nuanced lights and pay for their travesties. And now I'm like, I don't feel like he's done a lot of travesties, and I just want him to do well.
I literally was rooting for Johnny the entire season. I was like, oh my
Yeah.
gosh, he pretty much lost his whole studio where he was teaching the students. He lost Miguel because Miguel was in a coma. He lost
nothing.
Miguel's mom.
He lost Cobra
And-
Kai.
Lost Cobra Kai. He lost everything. And even
Yeah.
like towards the end of like it was either season 1 or no, it was season 2. Him and Danny were kind of like mending it a little bit, and then he lost all that because Daniel lost it when he found his daughter in Johnny's apartment.
Right.
But I was rooting for Johnny the whole time. Johnny's way more relatable than Danny. Danny's just like a winner, like no matter what he does without trying. Johnny's just like this loser guy that just can't get his life together. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like I feel horrible for this guy. I just want him to get a win for once.
That's one of the things I love about this show is everybody gets a little something, some more than others. Like obviously Johnny and Danny are like the protagonists, but
Mhm.
everybody gets a little something. Like there are things that you don't like about Danny, but then there's plenty of scenes that really humanize him. There are things where Johnny is an asshole, but you never really
Right.
stop rooting for him. Even my good boy Crease gets some stuff.
Oh, we'll talk about that
about
too.
him.
We'll definitely talk about
We'll
that.
talk about him.
Oh,
But-
good
Crease,
God.
man.
Are we talking about MASH? Or
Oh, man. Oh man.
what about you, Padromi? How do you feel, man?
I share a lot of sentiments that a lot of others have already shared when it comes to Johnny. I think overall he just can't catch a break, right? And the crummy part is that as often as we like to forgive Johnny for things that are out of his control, he does tend to put himself in a lot of these situations.
Mhm.
Like throughout this season as well, he always found himself in these situations, whether it's because his inability with technology or like his lack of maturity in having conversations or whatever that thing is. A lot of the stuff that happens to him is also a result of himself and quite frankly just really poor timing. But I don't know, I feel like Johnny for me is a symbol of hope. Like he has been beaten down so much, and this dude has just continued to find ways to kind of like try and try and try. And I have to agree with Andrew. I find him to be the most relatable person in the series because not for nothing, I feel like that's me all the time. I feel like I'm always trying, messing up, trying to like find ways to motivate myself. And like, I feel like he really symbolizes that hope that people have in trying to do it the right way, but never quite getting there. And I think a lot of people
Amen to that.
can relate to that.
Yeah.
And so,
Absolutely.
I really do think this season was really big for Johnny in many ways. Um, as much as I love him and Miguel's mom, I really liked him and Allie. And
Yeah.
maybe that's the nostalgia in me, but I also thought that they were, quite frankly, a better fit. But yeah.
Well, why don't we actually talk about that now that you mentioned it? The whole confrontation, whatever you want to call it, with Allie, and how one, you find out a lot more about Allie, and I think they added so much more depth
Yeah.
to her character. But at the same
Absolutely.
time, too, it forces Johnny to start thinking about things in a different way, right? It is something that is really, really good for both of their developments, and then we'll talk about that dinner scene because God, we have to talk about that dinner
Oh
scene.
my god.
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
Yeah.
but
Well, I just.
go ahead.
Oh,
Go ahead.
sorry.
No, go ahead.
Well, I just want to say, I don't. I mean, I did like the whole Allie and Johnny thing, like meeting up again, sparks flying, nostalgia. I
Mhm.
just don't think that they make a great couple because I think it brings out the worst in Johnny. And Johnny saw the most growth when he started seeing Miguel's mom, and I really liked that bond better.
Sure.
That's just my personal opinion and from what I saw from the show. But Johnny kind of like fell back into his old ways when he saw Allie again, and he kind of like got the whole Cobra Kai bully thing going on again for a brief moment. But when he's with Miguel's mom, like he really is just trying to grow more, and that's also because of her son, like because like he wants to be able to be like a good teacher and somewhat of a father figure to her son, and I just think that's why I like them both together way more than I did with Johnny and Allie.
I gotta say, I was actually very pleasantly surprised by the whole Alley arc
Mm.
because, like, I loved the momentum of the season 2 finale and how everything had fallen apart. Everyone was at their lowest point, and then it's like, oh, okay, so they're bringing back Allie. Okay, and my thought was like, well, what's gonna happen? What is there gonna be a love triangle or something that's stupid? And the answer is no, not really. It just kind of happens the way it would probably happen in real life, and that they grab lunch and they talk about the past, and that'd be that. And
I
I
don't
liked that. I thought it was kind of refreshing.
I don't need to throw shade, but I have to say, y'all, and I mean, I watched this with my family,
Right.
and my parents love it. And that age group, my mom was telling about it during December. All of her friends were watching it. Like everyone was on
Interesting.
Facebook. Yes. So that age group, and my mom's, she's gonna hate this. She's 60, so it's the that older age group, boomer. She was like loving it and adoring it.
Oh yeah.
But I have to say though, when you're talking about these people meeting up because of Facebook, I don't mean to spill any tea, but like it happens more often than you think. Where
Right.
it's like
Absolutely.
Right.
these people get together, they haven't seen each other in 30 years. And I mean, we're coming at this from our younger age range, but there's all these feelings and nostalgia and missed opportunities.
Yeah.
And people get I personally liked the direction they went with because, like I said, especially for Daniel, because he's married. But I mean, there's
Yeah.
been
Yeah.
divorces and marriages and affairs and kind of gross stuff, honestly.
Yeah.
So I don't know how I feel about it. Do y'all know what I mean?
No, I totally get
Yeah.
what you mean in terms of like the premise, and I'm glad they didn't make it into a love triangle or whatever, like or square,
Yeah.
whatever you want to call it.
A
Like we've all
square?
pointed
I
out.
find it interesting in this show because a lot of the like I feel like all of the karate stuff they crank it up to 11 and it's like let's get just the only thing that matters is the drama. Let's get super crazy. Let's leave reality until the karate fight ends. But then for all the interpersonal stuff, it's treated very just kind of off the cuff and very I don't want to say realistically, but very not super dramatized. It's not a
Right.
soap opera in
Right.
terms of how the characters interact with one another, unless they're karate fighting. If
Yeah.
they're karate fighting, then it's to the rafters. But other than that, it's very laid back, and I think that makes for a really nice kind of contrast.
Yeah.
Danny was annoying me, by the way, with this whole like he was like kind of flirting with Kumiko, and then he was kind of like having this like whole battle thing against Johnny with Allie. I was like, you're a married man. Like, you need to chill for a second.
The man's
With
a
a child in
dog.
high school.
Well, okay, I love everything that you're saying, all of you, because one thing that really happened with Johnny this season is that he's confronted a lot, right? Miguel calls him out, and he's just like, you can't just abandon the school, and that was a wake-up call for him. And then he meets with Allie, and that was a wake-up call for him too, because for the longest time, and we've said it before, that Johnny lives in the past. Like, for him, he peaked in high school, and he always looks back so nostalgically on that. And I think Allie was one of those people who he had to meet in order to like get himself out of that funk of just like, yeah, it was
It was
really
a loose
good.
end.
Yeah, it
It
was
was a
really
what if.
good, and I'm so glad that it happened. But like, I need to live my life, sort of thing. And I think that was really important for him. On top of that,
Yeah.
too, he has all these like unresolved things with Kreese, because like
It's real.
I think in the beginning of the season, he was kind of just like, all right, I'll let Kreese do his thing, probably because he still has some sort of feeling for him. It's a complicated relationship for sure. But eventually he kind of has to confront the fact that he can't let the kids fend for themselves against someone like Kreese, especially since he himself knows what Kreese is like and how he manipulates people. So I thought that was,
He was ready. He was ready to just get out for his own sake, but then he realized, well, wait a minute. I'm not just getting out. I'm leaving all of them with Kreese, and that's no good either.
Exactly. And one thing I want to say too is, even though we never got a scene that was like season 1, you remember when Johnny told Miguel at the burger place about the birth of his son? Like, there was never that quite of a scene where he was really acting his butt off, you know what I mean? But I think this scene showed, or not scene, excuse me, this season really showed his range, because we're talking about all the dramatic moments. I thought Johnny was the funniest part of this season too. Like, there was
He
that
was
one,
great.
that was the one time when he was setting up like the online dating profile, and
The
like
Instagram.
Miguel was like, "Hey man, you got any pictures?" Like, "Nah, man, I don't have any that aren't shirtless." And he was like, "All right, well, do you want to take new ones?" He's like, "Oh, I need to get more baby oil." It's like, bro, chill.
He goes and gets all of his old headshots from the 80s.
Yeah,
Oh, the dating was hilarious.
so
Oh,
funny.
I completely agree.
He does the butterfly graffiti pose.
Yeah, or like when he went to this high school, or for whatever reason that he's walking away, that he knocks like the kid's books out of his hands, like, "Sorry, dude, just that happened." It's like, dude, it was so funny. One part that also I was dying was when they revealed what his new karate school is called. It was Eagle Fang. Was like, Johnny, no,
Eagle Fang.
Johnny,
That
no.
That was the best part, because they built it up perfectly. I was actually really surprised that joke got me, because I was like, oh, this is really dramatic. Like, he's back. He's making a new karate school. And he builds it up with that whole speech where he's like, there's only one creature that can outsmart the Cobra. And I'm like, oh shit, it's gonna be like mongoose karate. It's gonna be some off. And like, they even have a kid say that. It's like, you mean a mongoose? And he's like, no, that's not a bird like that. He's like, mongoose isn't a bird. He's like, no, an eagle. It's Eagle Fang. And it's like, of course, this is the route they would go with it.
Of course.
This is the show knows exactly when to go, okay, things are getting a little heavy. Let's reel it back a little bit. Let's have some fun.
For sure. So I know we talked on it a little bit earlier, but we have to talk about that dinner scene where we have Miguel. I'm sorry, not Miguel. We have Danny, we have Johnny, we have Allie, and we have Danny's wife.
Danny's wife, whatever.
I'm trying to remember her name. I was about to say Samantha, but that's the daughter. Hold on. Amanda. Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah.
Right.
So
the MVP of the Russo family. Got it.
the only one that actually operates in reality.
Absolutely.
So that dinner scene. Tell me, what you guys think?
That was fun.
It was funny. I like the whole like them dancing off and stuff like that. But like I said before, like Danny, like you're right next to your wife and you're right next to your first love. Like you really need to like calm yourself down. Like you're gonna get your wife is gonna kill you in your sleep. You gotta like tone it down a lot. But
I think she handled it really well. His wife.
She really did.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
Like,
that
she was
was
very classy. I was like,
completely.
Nice,
she's
She's
awesome.
like, absolutely
She's
tell
awesome.
me everything embarrassing that he did in high school right now. And then they run up to get drinks, and it's like, yeah, that's what it happens. That's how
Exactly.
it works.
I gotta say, like, I mean, I've already said this in the past 2 podcasts. I just don't like Danny at all.
I
Danny was good in the movie. In the shows, he's an asshole.
Oh man, that's gonna be. We're gonna make one day. We're gonna do an entire retrospective. Someone's gonna look back at all 3 of these, and they're just gonna remember how much Andrew hates Danny.
So much.
Padromi, how'd you feel, man? Especially as someone who's watched this series for so long and seeing all these characters come together.
It was interesting because I was thinking about like the first time when Danny first sees Allie at the party. And like that was like that first like, oh my god, what are you doing here? This is amazing. And then he realizes that Allie's there with Johnny, and it was just like the WTF moment.
Right.
And then they start like kind of like battling over like, well, who's gonna get her the drink? And then, then Amanda comes walking on over, and Johnny's all like, oh yeah, it's your wife. Like, and they have like that little moment there. But I think Amanda very intuitively picked up on the fact that like, Daniel was kind of reminiscing the fact that Allie was there. And again, she's a real one. She's like, I'm gonna let him do his thing, but he knows what's up. She's gonna reel him back in at some point, like even during the dinner, like, it's just like it just made sense,
That's
Right.
It's like the theme of the night. It's real. I loved that, where it's like, because that's how it really goes. Danny's standing there. He's like, "Oh, it's her. That's nice. I'm ready to see her again." And then Johnny interframes, and he's like, "Oh, wait. Oh.
Yeah, because then it turned into a
Too
competition.
soon."
It turned into a competition about who was getting Allie's attention, right?
Right.
And it was just it was poetic, even that like this time Johnny was the one who got to go to the beach with Allie, like
Right.
and not Daniel.
It's I'm over her. Wait a minute, who's she here with? Oh,
Exactly.
and it's like, oh, that's real.
How did y'all
That's
feel about,
human
I guess,
shit.
the why they broke up? Did that make sense to y'all? I guess
You mean
UCLA?
Johnny and Allie?
I'll be honest,
Yeah.
I don't even
Wait.
remember. Refresh my
Well,
memory.
Allie broke up
Or
with
Danny and Allie.
Yeah. Allie broke up with Johnny because he broke her radio in Rage. In
Yeah.
the movie.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
like Danny like came out of nowhere and was like flirting with her, and he was like, he came in with his posse on his bikes, and he saw them like playing around, and he was like, all right, I gotta stop this from happening. I gotta get my girl back. And then he broke her radio, which was a dick move. Yeah, so that's what happened. I mean, that's good old like childhood romance kind of thing. Like, like, oh, I'm dating one day, broke up with him because he, broke my radio.
Did y'all break any ladies' radios in high school?
No.
Can say for a fact 100% that did not happen.
No, Johnny was just an asshole in the movie. But yeah, that's pretty much how they broke up.
And then her and Daniel, I guess, because she met a football player. I don't know. I didn't know how realistic the not excuses were, but the reasons were. I was like,
Well,
little
Danny
sus.
and her had like sparks flying. They weren't really official. They just had like a small romance thing. But Danny really kind of like took it out on her because of like Johnny kept like in the first movie, Johnny kept like attacking Danny, and then Danny would get back at Johnny and stuff like that. And Danny would get mad at Allie and take it out on her for the whole like Johnny picking on him kind of thing. So they never really formed a relationship. It was more like just a small romance.
I thought that they had broken up because like Allie went off to college or something, didn't turn a long distance.
yeah.
Yeah.
It was
Well,
like a
didn't
UCLA
Danny
That's
football
what
think
player.
no longer
and Danny
feeling-
broke up.
Oh,
But
you might
if
be
you go
right.
to
You're
if you
right.
go to 2 minutes and 30 seconds on that clip I just shared with everyone, you'll
Whoa.
see the scene in which the radio is broken.
Yep.
Oh.
Yep. Good old
R.I.P.
1980s radio.
Yeah.
This is the Zapruder film of radios.
But yeah, Danny and Allie broke up because of college and the distance.
Yeah.
Which-
Which that seems realistic to me. We
Which
all,
is like
Yeah, that makes
that
I
sense.
forgot
happens.
about that.
I've
all-
been
There's a high school girlfriend.
got that T-shirt.
we all been. I've been there. Trust me. So I get it. But one thing I did want to really touch on here, is something that comes out of the dinner where I think it was both of them, both Amanda and Allie, who tell them both like, you two are a lot more similar than you really think you are. Like
Yeah.
you're basically the same person. Like you could probably stop trying to act like you're both still in high school kind of thing. And I think they both needed to hear that, even though it's been said a million times. But I think hearing it from both of them at the same time was what was needed to get through to both of them. How did you all feel about how, like, I guess the result and how it played out, so to speak?
I mean, yeah, I'm just happy to finally. It was a real, like, you have like Sam and Diane on Cheers, you have Jim and Pam on The Office. I like that we finally get to see Johnny and Danny get together in season 3 of Cobra Kai. They finally joined
Oh
forces.
my god!
Finally,
Oh.
after 2 seasons of, oh, are they going to be friends? No, they're not going to be friends. Now finally, it's fuck this guy, we're friends. And
The
it's like,
Yeah, kinda like
it feels
unholy
so good.
alliance.
Jim.
It feels so good.
It's like Dwight and Jim, like they're huge rivals, but then when they're together, it's like, yes, this is exactly what I wanted.
Well, yeah,
Is
we
that-
see
that's-
that manifest later on during the season, right? With everything that
Yeah.
happens with Robbie.
Right. Ooh.
Well, because I think it's interesting now that like I'm really thinking about it more, in like how similar are they? And it's like, yeah, they both got dad issues. They both had surrogate fathers that had a big impact on how they turned out. They both like karate. They're both very competitive. They're both very insecure.
They like the same women.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, they got a lot of going.
Yeah.
I just think Johnny has more going for him though, because I think Danny, like once the show kicked off season 1, he just saw so much winning. So like I mean, as cool as that is, and as cool as like as everybody wants to win in life, like it's completely unrelatable. Like you don't win all the time. Like if you go pick up a lottery ticket, you're not gonna win.
Sure.
99.99% of the time. Johnny is extremely likable because like he's relatable. Like we've all been in a ditch. We've all had like really really bad days. We've lost like like time after time, and then when you finally win, you're like, oh my gosh, like it feels good. Like because you've been in that moment when you really wanted to win, then you finally get one. You finally have that relief.
Yeah. Yeah. And
He's the underdog.
on that note too, I want to also applaud the writers for making Allie like a 3-dimensional character in a way. Like they could have
Oh,
easily,
yes.
Yeah.
they could have easily made her some sort of like object just for Johnny to like pine over. But like she went through some shit too, and I'm glad that they went
Just a
through that.
cameo. She actually contributed some stuff to the season.
Exactly. And kind of like going off of what Andrew said, like that's what makes it kind of relatable in the sense of that they both talked about like, look, like we both had gone through a lot of shit, right? I think the show should be incredibly applauded for doing that. But Jeremy, you touched on it, so I guess we'll just get right into it. Robbie this season, he had an experience unlike everything else, right? So
Oh Lord!
he
Dark Robbie, the Dark Robbie
yeah,
saga.
he don't even interact with no one. He's
Sith
stuck
Robbie?
in. He's
It's
stuck
like
in.
a young Anakin, like honestly.
Sith
You boot
Robbie!
up Sonic
Oh
Adventure
my
2, you
God.
pick
Oh my God.
dark story, and you play as Robbie.
Robbie, you are so right on the Anakin thing. Oh
Cobra
my
Kai
god.
season 3, the corruption of Robbie.
Oh my god, that's
This
it.
is-
I never heard that before, but it's spot on.
It's literally young
Literally.
Anakin, bro. Like I feel like Robbie was forced to put on this badass persona that just did not exist in his character development. It wasn't necessary. It wasn't required. He came off like a hard ass and as kind of like a wimp at the same time.
Right.
You know, like everything that happened with the stolen car, and then he was sleeping in the truck, and then he was going to his mom who was in rehab, and then
He had
You know.
pissing me off.
it was just like, dude, get over yourself, bro. Like I get it. You fucked up hard, and you had a big, obviously a life changing situation happen, but like there were so many people there trying to help the entire thing, and obviously everything that happened at Juvie was not pleasant at all.
right.
And like I would have been well worse off than Robbie was in prison in Juvie, but prison for that matter, anything.
Yeah.
But like at the end of it all, it's coming to terms with what you've done, and going through that kind of growth and the necessity of just having a little bit of faith that things are going to be okay, which is obviously hard because like his father and his other father, none of them are having good upbringings. It seems like all the men in this series are just dumb, useless, and fatherless. Every single one of them, and it's frustrating because all any of these people need is a good role model, and the one
Right.
person who got a good role model can't be a good role model to anyone.
Right.
And it's tough because even down to the moment when Danny basically tricks Robbie into going with the corrections officer, like it was just like it just felt like a lot of these issues, and I said this before, a lot of the issues in this series could just easily been resolved with like a conversation or
Yeah.
like a text message.
100%.
And like and it's really crummy because like you know, I don't know. I feel like Robbie was forced to take on this persona that I don't think that if you saw Robbie season 1, season 2, he needed to really to get to that place. He was very self sufficient, and then he became very hopeless. It was
just
weird.
have to say, father. What did you say? Useless, dumb, and fatherless. Like that's exactly.
Damn.
That's like
I mean,
a
it's
long
true though.
line.
Name one thing that any male in this series has done that made actual sense. And think about the women of the series and how we applaud all the things that they've done. Tell me I'm wrong.
No, you're right.
You hit
You're
the nail
right.
on the head, man. Hit the nail on.
You
Now-
did.
All right, Abby. I'm gonna give you the floor. Give your rant about Robbie this season. Go
I
for
hate
Put it
it.
out.
Okay, do you remember the first 2 podcasts, y'all?
Yeah.
I liked him. I believe in redemption. I love an anti-hero. I'm not gonna lie, I like an angsty boy. This season, he just chose the wrong thing over and over and over and over and
Love
over
it.
again.
The dark side.
Yes, and it tilted me because I did not root for him. You know how we talk about like Johnny, I root for Johnny every core of my being. Robbie, I honestly was like, I don't care about you anymore.
I hope Robbie ends up getting redeemed for Johnny's sake, not for Robbie's sake.
Exactly.
I
Yeah.
care about Robbie as an
Exactly.
extension of Johnny.
Which is kind of sad as a character, and then also as a person. I don't know. You know what I mean? Like as a character, it's like I only care about you by association of someone else, which I don't know is good. But then also, yeah, he was so frustrating this season. And then the juvie scenes were like very just strange to me. Like that was definitely one of the weak points. I'm not gonna lie.
It felt like it
Mhm.
was a completely different show because obviously he's like the
Yes.
only person. There's no
Yeah.
other characters he interacts with, so it was just like completely in isolation. It was like, okay, like yeah, I'm listen. I'm sure Juvie's not a nice place. No one's saying that.
Yeah.
But it was like a very strange. Like he got into like a couple fights and then like everything was okay, and then he's still mad at Johnny and Daniel, and even though they're both trying, and he was just like, "You guys just don't treat me right." It's just like, oh, bro, come on.
Like that I could accept because it's like, all right, teenagers aren't that bright in that regard, and I like the idea that it's like, no, this is what set him down the dark path. Is he made a mistake, and then he ended up in juvie, and then the way he survived was through force. So then when he gets out and the person he meets is Kreese, there we
Oh
go.
my
That's
God.
that's a bad time cocktail right there. That's gonna
And
result
it's a
in a lot of nasty shit happening.
it's a bad time cocktail, but then I also what he did to Miguel that's not assault. I know, okay, it's definitely assault. It's not attempted manslaughter because he could have broken his neck. I was a little confused also by that.
I think that's another one of those like
It's
it
not
doesn't
in
matter. It's
reality.
dramatic
Yeah.
things because I feel like I remember one of the characters where it was like a cop or a lawyer or something being like his sentence how he's sentenced depends on if Miguel dies in the coma or something like
Lord.
that. And it's like like that could be how that works, but
Probably not.
I don't know if I don't know, maybe I don't know.
Oh God.
Robbie's in juvie. He's having a bad time. He's gonna fight some guys, and then Kreese is gonna sidle up and be like, "Good, good."
Well, we also have to remember that he also stole Danny's truck as well.
Yeah.
Right.
So, like he was just piling up like the miscreant kind of stuff. But I just want to add on. I don't like Robbie at all. I actually found most of the scenes with
Woo!
Robbie. I mean I already mentioned this before in the other podcasts, but
Right.
I find his scenes the most unmemorable.
Mhm.
And I'm just like, all right, let's just get these scenes over with. I really just want to see more of like Johnny and even the Hawk. The Hawk is like, oh my gosh, these are awesome.
Andrew, I hear you, but Adam, can we rename the podcast the Anti Miyagi Do Show?
Oh. Oh.
God.
My man doesn't like Johnny. Danny. My man doesn't like literally every member of Miyagi Do. Andrew's like, nah, bro.
No, literally, like I just have to say, like I agree with like what you said. Like this is like not like Miyagi Do, Danny. I mean, see, Danny, I don't like in this show, but I can tolerate him as a character. Robbie, I just can't tolerate as a character at all. Like, I just find him a completely boring character. I just don't find his scenes interesting, memorable. I just kind of like, all right, let's just get this over with. Like, he's a loser teenager. He's messed up, angsty.
Sure.
Like, I'm just like over it.
I kind of liked him a bit more in this season, to be honest. Just 'cause I was never a fan of Robbie, because like season 1, I appreciated the utility he had for the story, because his little arc made him a very good antagonist for that tournament finale.
Yeah.
And then season 2, he was a total non-character. I did not care for him at all, because it felt like he went from being a hoodlum to being, oh gee golly gosh, Mr. LaRusso, oh boy. Like he was way too bland and pure. And now it's like, no, now he's got some struggle and he's got some shit to deal with, and he's enhancing Johnny's drama. So I'm not a fan of him still, but I like what he brings to the table. He doesn't feel superfluous as he did in season 2.
I think it's clear we all have different opinions there, Robbie. I'm probably leaning more towards, like, I'm not the biggest fan of him. I actually, what really hit the nail on the head was what Mark said, where I care more about Robbie because he's an extension of Johnny more than I care about Robbie as a character. And I do think that says a lot. But at the same time, though, Robbie's opposite in the show, kind of rival in a lot of ways, is Miguel. And even though Miguel spent a lot of the show, in some ways, going through the marvelous misadventures of recovery, which was hilarious. But he does go through a little bit in this show, even if it's not as much as previous season. Because I think in a lot of ways he was kind of like the main character of the kids, so to speak, for a while. Yeah. So how do you guys feel about what he had to go through this season?
It was good.
And what he what the role he had to play, so to speak.
Miguel, even in a coma 90% of the time, is way more interesting than Robbie. Robbie puts me in a coma.
Damn, man, we moved on to another character. We already got to bring Robbie back in.
That's the problem.
Well, first of all, I just want to say Miguel, like, if we're going on realistic standpoints, how does he even come out of that?
Well, again,
like
you have to remember, this doesn't take place in reality anymore.
They explain in the show, he envisions the coma as a karate man, and then he beats him in a dream, and then he wakes up. That's how it works.
It doesn't take... Listen, man, as someone who studied to be a physical therapist, at one point I could tell you, like, the amount of physical therapy treatment you have to go through to even get close to restoring some sort of activity to the spine, like, no. It's not reality. Just
Adam, come on. They did not have Johnny Lawrence in your physical therapy classes. Okay?
You're right.
That's all you needed was a Playboy magazine and some fire. Okay.
Did they put a skin mag on a fishing pole? No.
We just need to go. We just need to go to the Dee Snider concert. You're right. We needed that for the class trip. I forgot. But no, I think what he did was good, because he was one of the only characters that was talking to the Cobra Kai. People was like, "What the hell are you guys doing? Why are we a gang now?" Like,
that was great. I loved his contrast of, like, hey, I've been in a coma. What's happening? Oh, you did what to his arm? And it's like, oh, this is like. And I love that too, because you could see Miguel had a better, like, ooh, will he, won't he turn to the dark side arc in season 2.
Yeah.
Where it's like Cobra Kai's changing around him, and you still believe he's good, but also, like, he's still hanging out with Hawk and being all Cobra Kai never dies, even though he's a good dude. So it's like, ooh. And now we finally see that come to a head where it's like, ooh, okay, lines are drawn in the sand. What's gonna happen? It's satisfying. You know. This is at its heart. It's an 80s sports drama, and man, what's better than a montage of a guy in a wheelchair learning to use his legs again so he could go kick some ass, you know?
I did like that, the montage aspect version of physical therapy, if that makes sense, instead of the normal workout.
Yeah.
I thought that was I liked that. I thought that was actually a nice, like, spin.
It's great.
Yeah, I do think it also kind of, it's like almost like a throwback to season 1, because the focus became not on Miguel and Cobra Kai. It became a lot more about just Johnny and Miguel and their relationship. And of course, like we've said before, especially when Johnny's in the picture, that's when the show is really, really strong. That's when it's, firing on all cylinders. So in that regard, I was very happy to kind of see that. And I know, Andrew, you've been waiting for this. I think it's undoubtedly true that Miguel played a part in Hawk's arc throughout the season and in his redemption. And that's definitely something that's super important.
Absolutely.
See,
Absolutely.
you just made me think of something. I think I just realized like Miguel's whole like physical therapy thing. It's almost like a parallel to Johnny,
Mhm.
just because like season one starts out. It's like Miguel's a loser, and his whole arc is now joins Cobra Kai, and he learns karate, and he gets self confidence, and he turns into a cool guy.
Sure.
And it's like Johnny is a loser, gets involved with Cobra Kai, gets self confidence, becomes a cool guy. Everything goes bad in season two, and now you're lower than where you were when you started. Like you're not Johnny's not just a loser again. He's a loser who's lost what little he had.
Hmm.
Miguel isn't just not an athlete now. He doesn't get to use his legs. So seeing the two of them crawl back
Right.
from such a lowly
Yeah.
place, it's like it's great. It's classic. It's why 80s sports movies work. It's classic stuff.
I agree completely. That was perfectly said.
Yeah,
It was
Padromi.
kind of sad.
No, go
Wait,
ahead,
what?
Andrew. Go ahead.
No, it was just sad that because I think there was like an exchange between Johnny and Miguel. Like Miguel didn't want anything to do with Johnny at
Yeah.
one point.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, and that was
Mhm.
like, oh my gosh, like not only is Johnny losing, but Miguel is too, because like Miguel confided in Johnny, and that's the whole reason why Miguel became the person that he was because of Johnny. So like, not only did Johnny lose a lot, but Miguel pretty much lost a lot, and they were just both very relatable characters, and even like with Miguel and the Hawk, like the exchange that they had too, and like he was telling the Hawk to kind of like chill and stuff like that, and
Yeah.
not trust in oh my gosh, what's his name? Can't even remember it.
Crease.
Yeah, Crease.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was just like Miguel went through a lot in this season, probably the most that he's been through than the previous seasons.
Absolutely. Or Padromi or Abby, did you have anything that you wanted to add about what's going on with Miguel this season?
I was just gonna say Miguel is my. I think I do love Johnny, but I think Miguel's my favorite character on the show.
Hmm.
And this season really, I think, cemented that. I mean, because it's like you went through this horrible thing, and then you just see him. And I know it's not realistic, but I do have to say it did feel satisfying, and I was
Yeah.
happy because I was really
It's great.
nervous. And I don't know. I feel like right now we need some hope in this world. So this episode, last year watching it, it just felt good. It felt right. And then he stays true to himself. And I do have to say some of these, the problem, we talk about with Hawk, which as a teenager, I think he's grown a lot, and that I have deep respect for that.
Right.
And his mom they're just so sweet, and he to me is like, he's the protagonist, he's the hero, even though I mean technically it's Johnny. I kind of think it was Miguel as like
Yeah.
I don't want to say the heart, but I would honestly say the heart of the show, because I think a lot of the sweetness of their relationship with Johnny comes when they're interacting and they're being that mentor mentee, and I get those Miyagi feelings that I got with the original.
I agree with you. Yeah, and you know what? Johnny and Miguel both grow because of each other.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's the whole reason Johnny does has a lot of growth because of Miguel. Miguel's like bringing him to this like new generation with technology, with Facebook and stuff like that, and just having a heart for people. And Miguel learns strength from Johnny and how to stand up for himself and how to grow as more of a man, and like protecting himself and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Generations are different. We all have things we could teach each other.
I think when it comes to Miguel, I think one thing that he really adds to the series' perspective, I think a lot of it has to do with his injury and what happened. And, when he woke up and he realized like how the path that he was headed down was just not the right path. And I think he was counting his blessings. And I think that moment was a wake up call for a lot of people, Hawk in particular. Because he realized how dangerous things were, and you saw that shift in Hawk. And I don't know if it was necessarily because of Miguel. I think it's more because when Kreese brought in Kyle, or that his name,
Yeah.
And I think that's when things really changed for Hawk. And he realized the toxic, terrible ways that Kreese was taking Cobra Kai, and I think Cobra Kai for a long time meant something different to people like Hawk, to people like Miguel, right? Like Cobra Kai was something different. It was something badass. It was something cool. Now Cobra Kai was becoming a completely different beast. I think part of that realization definitely did come from Miguel, and I think Miguel adds a certain level of refreshingness. I don't have a good word for it, but that's the one I got right now to the series because like I would say, like he does provide a lot of hope. I do still view Johnny as my hope beacon, but Miguel just definitely makes you feel a bit more like things are okay. Because Miguel throughout the entire series was always level headed, right? Very much influenced by those around him, but you can tell the way he was raised by his mom and the mannerisms and things of that nature always take precedent in most situations. Even at the tournament when he took that hit on Robbie in season 1, you saw the immediate regret in his face, even as he was celebrating. The immediate, like, his conscience is so real throughout the entire series, and I think it just really lends to, like, I don't know, some really earnest feelings throughout. And even like how him and Sam, like, he was able, like, man, if I was as mature as Miguel at his age, like, he was able to look at this chick who got him kicked off a balcony, almost paralyzed forever, and go, yeah, we can be friends again. Like, what? that takes a very special person, and I think that's what it makes it so easy to love Miguel.
Yeah, I think that what you said that stuck out to me was earnestness about Miguel. Like, that's the word that comes to my mind too when I think of what he kind of brings to the show and to the rest of the characters and how he interacts with all of them. So definitely have to agree with you there. We've touched on it a lot though, so I think we might as well talk about it. The Hawk this season. He started off as a character that was Cobra Kai for life. Like, let's be honest, he became Kreese's like number one henchman, whatever you want to call it. But as time went on, and kind of the evolution of Cobra Kai as a karate dojo, you kind of see Kreese's true colors, and it was very, very cool to see the Hawk's kind of evolution, not only noticing those differences, but also trying to reconcile with himself, because you could tell there's a big internal conflict with him because he has such a personal relationship with Cobra Kai. But ultimately, he does get redeemed in that entire process, this entire arc that he goes through, because make no mistake, it is an arc. How do you all feel about that? Because I know Hawk is a favorite among many of you.
Well, Hawk, the whole reason why he turned to Cobra Kai was because he was the one that was getting bullied all the time. And I think he was depressed because of his whole living situation, and he just wanted to feel like he belonged somewhere and also that he could stand up for himself. So, like, Cobra Kai helped him grow stronger as a person, and then, he formed that relationship with Johnny more. But you could really see in season 2 and season 3 that his relationship was more with the actual organization than it was with Johnny. And then he found a deeper relationship with Kreese at the beginning. But then Miguel was pretty much telling him that Kreese is no good and everything like that, and that he should be leaving it and stuff. And then I think he was able to see that. And the whole reason why he turned to Cobra Kai in the first place was to, defend himself against bullies. And then he started to realize that he was actually becoming the bully.
Absolutely, yeah.
I like Hawk's arc a whole lot because, like I said before, everybody gets a little something. Where, like, even Hawk, who's done so many shitty things, there's a whole little scene where he and Miguel are talking, and I forget the specifics of it, but Miguel says something to the effect of, like, "Hey, like, how's about you lay off those guys?" And he's like, "What do you mean lay off them? They crippled you. You almost died." And it's like, okay, it's misplaced aggression, but to a point, a lot of it is coming out of a sense of, like, no, for real, Cobra Kai never dies. Like, we're brothers. Like, you don't mess with my friends. You know, he obviously implements it in some not so healthy ways, but I really did like his little redemption arc because I think that parallels a lot of what you see where it's people, a lot of them young, kind of disenfranchised people getting suckered in by, not so great ideologies.
Sure.
And then because they want a sense of community. And
Yes.
that's what Cobra Kai offers him. And it's only when, one of his buddies gets the shit kicked out of him by Kyler, and Kreese tells him to hit the bricks, that he realizes, like, oh, this isn't a friends club like I assumed it was. This is just who can beat the most ass. No loyalties here. This isn't what I signed up for. So his little redemption arc, it was a little quick, but
I agree. Yeah.
considering this is the same season where he shatters Dimitri's arm,
Oh my
but
god.
also I think it makes sense, and I liked to see it. Because I also think it leaves everybody else in a very interesting position where you get to see like we'll probably get into this later, but like I think the show's got one season left in it,
Yes.
or at least
There's nowhere else that can go after this.
I would be.
like, if-
I'd be shocked if they would go one more season.
They'll probably keep it going just because it's popular, but end it now. It feels like it's drawing to a climax. Have this next season be the last one.
Yeah.
Maybe one more if you give
No,
them
don't put that out in the
episodes.
universe.
but like if you had to, but like it feels like it's coming to a close, and it's like, oh, it's interesting to see who is on Team Kreese and who is on Team Johnny Danny,
Yeah.
But no, I like.
I wish we can get a running
Hawk's always
lineup
been
on
a
like
good
who's on
character.
whose roster right now.
Yeah. We need
Yeah,
like a
right.
chart to see. We need a
Can we
timeline.
get a chart of all the dojos and all the teams.
Exactly.
It's kind of
tier list.
becoming like the different dojos like in Mortal Kombat. Like everyone is in a different different
Like
different
sect
group.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
goes back to Mortal Kombat.
Always
It-
does. Always
it
All
does.
does.
roads lead to Mortal Kombat.
How'd you feel about Hawk this season, Abby?
Y'all have been very pro Hawk. I have been a little skeptical of the Hawk. I
Mhm.
really enjoyed him this season. I thought his relationship with Dimitri so fascinating. And I told y'all, as a girl who grew up friends with a lot of girls, it is so fascinating to see like a expose of a male friendship.
Mhm.
If that
Mhm.
makes sense.
Yeah.
No, but right.
Yes.
I think
Totally
they're really
does.
fascinating. One of I would say one of my top 2 fascinating dynamics on the show, because it's just it changes so often. And I thought it was also interesting, kind of romantically, they're just finding themselves in their identity.
Mhm.
And he changed a lot, and it made me happy. And it's interesting, I guess. Again, talked about, the bully becomes the bully, and how common that is. Or the bullied becomes that power dynamic, I guess, right?
Right.
And so that is really fascinating. And I think they kind of zeroed in on that a little bit, where he finally had some self-realization,
Mhm.
which I thought was really well done. And him and Miguel was very wholesome too. So I greatly enjoyed him this season. I used to think he was a little silly, honestly, but this season brought him way back into my I'm a fan now.
He was certainly brought down from the stratosphere, because he was
Yes.
up on top of the sky. You know what I'm saying? Like he thought it was everything. And this season definitely brought him down a few pegs. But what about
Exactly.
you, Padromi? How did you feel
He's a
about the
great
Hawk?
Vegeta.
It's a good way to
Wow,
describe it.
Wow, that's a great analogy there, Mark.
Yeah.
Hawk this season, I think Hawk was becoming used to, and we saw this in season 2, because he kind of overtakes Miguel as the lead of Cobra Kai in a weird
Sure.
way, right?
Yeah,
Maybe
exactly.
not in rank or title, but he kind of just takes over as the face of Cobra Kai.
Mhm.
And with the additions of Kyler and Tori coming back and Robbie mixing up into the fold, right? You look back on the scene and when they go to steal the Cobra, right, for
Oh,
Kreese. And Hawk was kind of and Robbie's I'm out. I got the Cobra here in my bag.
That's-
and it's just you kind of started seeing Hawk throughout the season taking these steps back and away from the Cobra Kai way of life and kind of back towards Miguel, because he will always be Miguel's number 2 and he'll never be number 1 in any circumstance. And I think, I think this, I think the planets are starting to move in the places and where they need to be to set us up for the ultimate showdown in the next season to end all showdowns.
Dun, dun,
Yes,
dun.
yes, definitely agree. And one thing that I love that you pointed out there was how there are multiple instances where he took a step back. And this part, I really want to give props to the actor. I think his name is Jacob Bertrand. I'm sorry if I pronounced that wrong, but there wasn't like a part right where he like talks about how he's feeling and says like, man, I don't know about this. This is crazy or whatever, right? I really want to applaud the actor for doing a lot of physical acting, like the way he looks, the way he would.
The nonverbal communication was exquisite.
His physical acting was really good. You could see the gears turning in his head, right, just by the way his facial expressions were. And I really want to applaud both him as well as the directors for getting that performance out of him. And Abby as well. Like it's very rare that we get these kind of male to male friendships so closely examined in TV. So I think that's such a great call out as well. I still think it's wild that Dimitri's arm was broken. Again, just shows like this is not reality at all. Like you can't just break into a random amusement park and turn the laser tag room into your battlefield. But whatever, I get it. But I liked Hawk a lot, but there's a whole bunch of other kids in this season, whether it be Samantha, whether it be Tori. How did you all feel about the other kids? Because I almost felt like
talking about Samantha in this episode. How is Homegirl experiencing all the PTSD that belongs to Miguel?
Yes.
And I had to bring it up because I am blown away by the fact that like that's a thing. Like
this all started.
Was that?
This all started because she accused a girl she just met of stealing from her mother, and then never bothered to apologize for being wrong. This all happened because of that.
I mean, I know Miguel gets like I think like a couple instances of like him falling and stuff like that, but like Samantha was distraught.
Yeah.
Like that was just. I'm baffled by that. I mean, I think it was Mark who said it in the first episode, how she's just like a useless character who just has no place in this series, and they're just trying to find ways to utilize her. And like I think that's still true.
Yeah,
like she has utility. It's just I don't care about what she's got going on compared to everyone else. Like, especially the PTSD plot, because I feel like her conflict with the other girl is Tori, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I feel like her conflict with Tori is a lot of like. I mean, Tori's clearly got a lot of shit going on, and she's clearly kind of
that was pretty nuts.
But I feel like I feel like a lot of that conflict also came from as consequences of Sam's actions, where it's like you didn't help not escalate this whole thing, so I don't feel as bad for you as if it was just a school bully scenario. Why are they picking on me? It's like, you know why she's picking on you. You know why she has a problem with you. So I don't like out of everybody else, you've probably suffered the least in this situation, but you're the one they give PTSD to, which isn't unrealistic. And it doesn't mean that you don't have a struggle, and it doesn't mean that you don't have an arc that we can root for.
Sure.
And I did like, how the big crazy fight at the end kind of came together. And I like her dynamic with Daniel, but also it's like you got to give her a little bit more to work with. For me to root for her the way I root for Dimitri or Hawk or Johnny or any of the other characters who really go through some crazy shit and really try but still fail.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
They really milked this whole PTSD thing with her. They continued it way too long, especially the scene when Tori and those other kids came and they kind of like that's when they broke Dimitri's arm, right?
Yeah.
I was like, oh my gosh, Sam, like you just gotta step up. Like you could have like helped him out a little bit. Like this is ridiculous.
That's the problem. Is it'd be one thing if they were all hanging out and then Cobra Kai showed up and started being dicks to them, and then they get into a fight, and then Dimitri's arm gets broken. She instigated it and then refused to finish it, and it's like, okay, that's a character flaw, but I'm not rooting for you because you instigated this. It's your fault that his arm is broken.
You have
everybody
PTSD. Right, you have PTSD.
Everybody else tried to stop you. They were all like, "Are you sure this is a good idea?" And you were like, "Yeah, let's get him." And it's like, you're frustrating. I don't need all my characters to be perfect, but this is frustrating to watch.
How about give this whole PTSD thing to Miguel, because he literally fell down a flight of stairs.
Miguel almost died. Robbie almost killed someone. Dimitri had his arm shattered by his former best friend.
Like, Sam was attacked by a jealous girl. Like, relax.
She got, and it's like she got messed up. Like, don't get me wrong.
Yeah, like no one would ever say
happened to her, but
exactly, yeah.
I wish they gave her more to work with, because I could see this character working really well, and there's elements of that character that work really well. I love all the stuff with her and Daniel, and how it's like, all right, they used to be really close when she was younger, but as kids do, they kind of grew apart a little bit.
Yeah.
And like her whole arc, where it's like the way she finally conquers her fear and defeats Tori it's in the family dojo, and she's using her bow staff. And it's like, that's great. I like that stuff. I just wish everything else around her I could like as much. It's frustrating.
Abby, I know you and I talked a little bit about this too offline, but how did you feel about her this season?
I mean, it just was like, and I always wonder, especially I feel like in action genres, I'm like, is it misogyny? Is it sexism? But for her, she's just very poorly written. It's not the actress's fault at all.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
I think the actress does, what she does with lines, but it didn't feel appropriate, the PTSD, because you're talking about timing, right? You're talking about how long do things last.
Mm-hmm.
And it didn't feel right. So that was just, again, as we said, annoyed, frustrated. And I used to be like, I don't want to be anti-Sam, but I'm a little anti. I've converted everything. Yeah, and when I said that, I'd be like, I used to be this. Now
One of us.
Just like the characters in Cobra Kai, we all have vast and crazy arcs.
Yeah, we keep on switching sides.
Depending on the season.
We do of who we like. So that's how it makes me sad, because I agree. I feel like she could be good, and towards the end I saw a little bit with Daniel, because again the father-daughter moments are the most special again.
Yes.
And so more of that makes me happy. Also her relationship with Miguel, y'all are right. It just is so, I'm like,
we'll talk about the romance this season for the kids in a little bit, but yeah.
Okay.
Ugh.
I want to be his friend and be like, you're better than this.
I hear you.
Like, get out of this. Literally, yeah. I'm the friend who's like, get out of that bad relationship. But it just is disappointing. It was not interesting. Again, we talked about how Robbie and Juvie, I was like, I'm bored. I was bored whenever Samantha came on.
Yeah.
Damn, putting it blunt like that.
Sorry.
I know. I totally agree. Like, again, and I want to make a couple things clear. One, I think the actress who plays as Sam, whose name escapes me, I think she's doing as everything that she possibly can, given what she's been told to do, writing wise, direction wise. I think the performance is fine. It's the writing it's really not that good. And I don't think anyone's ever going to say that what happened to Sam is no big deal. Like, for God's sake, it was a gang war at the high school. Yes, it's going to have some sort of impact, but the whole, and in general, this is a weird thing too, because we've talked about how the show goes off the rails. Like, this does not take place in reality. But then they want to touch on certain themes, and this is actually legitimately what I think one of the weaknesses of this season are. It's they want to touch on these themes that are really important and topical, something as big as PTSD. They want to touch on it, but it doesn't have the writing skill or whatever you want to call it to actually adequately explore those things. It touches on it, and it's okay, but we're never going to talk about it that much. It's just
we're straining a little bit.
Exactly.
It's reaching its carrying capacity.
Yeah, and it's it's such a tonal whiplash kind of thing, right? Where we're going from happy-go-lucky, Johnny's at the rock concert, Miguel got healed by the power of rock, to Sam's serious PTSD issues, while Dimitri's on the floor and his arm is shattered and he's screaming. It's what is happening right now, guys? We gotta figure out this tone a little bit, because we're going in 30 different directions right now. And I actually truthfully think that's one of the big weaknesses of the show. Is yes, it doesn't take place in reality, but it's at a certain point, you just have to go for it and just like, all right, we're embracing the full cheese. It doesn't take place in reality. We can have good character work, but we don't need to touch on things as heavy as like PTSD. It's like, whoa, guys, like, I don't even know what you're trying to accomplish here. And I think we're all on the same page too. If anyone's going to have PTSD, it's Miguel, who was in a coma. His entire spine was shattered.
Agreed.
Like, come on.
It's like, it's also because, like, the whole reason the school fight started was because Sam got drunk at a party and kissed Miguel. And it's like, not like Miguel isn't at fault there.
Yeah.
But it's like, this whole thing started because of you guys. Like, this wouldn't have happened if this issue didn't happen. And it's like, not to do the whole like, oh, you know, butterfly effect thing, but
Sure.
it's like it makes it difficult to sympathize with her in that regard, when it's like you could easily just write this character into situations that play out a little differently so that we do feel more sympathy for her, so that doesn't just feel like, yeah, you're shocked that this came back to bite you. It's like, if it feels like it wouldn't be as big a problem if she wasn't one of our main protagonists.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
And we've touched on Tori a little bit. She has a bit of a smaller role this season. I do.
They gave her more to work with. I was
impressed with
I
was about to say, I think that the backstory that they gave her was great. I thought Kreese was like I wouldn't say humanizes Kreese, but it certainly shows his tactics, so to speak, of how he gets garners loyalty. But
I can't wait to talk about Kreese.
Oh yeah, we're gonna talk about Kreese. Don't worry. We'll get into the romances, then we'll talk about Kreese as the big bad. But I think one thing I just want to touch on with Tori is that they do a good job of really humanizing her, and like what Mark said, like she goes through some shit, man. Like
exactly,
she really goes through it, and like. Yes, I don't think she should be breaking people's arms or whatever.
No, or
but
bringing out knives on people.
Yeah, you know,
Right.
I don't think she needs to be in a gang, but at the same time, it's just like, damn, like I get it. Like listen, what you have to deal with is fucking hard, you know.
Completely
Agree. Yeah, it was scary. The landlord thing was like scary.
Yeah.
Like,
Yes,
that was like one of the scariest things.
I was actually like deeply uncomfortable watching it. I was like,
oh me too.
My God, like, jeez. Yeah,
that was really
everybody gets a
uncomfortable.
little something. This
Yeah.
is
That
a
was
show where you
creepy
get scenes
perv
where you
stuff
can
going on.
you could cheer for the villains.
Yeah.
And Kreese puts that guy's finger in the cigar cutter. It's like, yeah. Now you're the protagonist, Kreese.
Definitely something that was cool to see. But all right, so before we get to, I'm sure we're all gonna have a lot of thoughts on Kreese. I did want to touch on the romances, especially among the kids. I'll be honest, I still think this is one of the weakest parts of the show. I get that they do it for a reason, but it's at the same time, it's just like,
It's because it's that kind of story.
yeah,
but
it's
also-
like, guys, like if you're gonna do it, like please put in more effort so that we can actually care. Like they keep on like switching who's dating who, and then it turns into like, I don't like you because you're with my ex. It's just like, we could do better. We can do so much better. But I don't know. Maybe I'm missing something. How do you all see
I'm
it?
looking forward to next season when the action is just going to be there's a tournament.
Yeah, me too.
All the pieces are in place. We don't need to worry about who's dating who anymore.
It's
just
setting
gonna
up
be,
for that.
we need to fight each other, so let's fight. And I'm foreseeing a nice easygoing, like a mellow dessert course for season 4.
There was too many love triangles in this season. Like there was just so much like romance going on. Like, all right, like I get it, like people like each other, but can we just get back to more Hawk and Johnny, please? Like, like goodness gracious.
Can we get back to the punching?
But
Yes,
the
that
spin
too. The
kicks?
action. There wasn't a lot of like the most action that occurred was probably towards the end. It was
They saved
was
it up.
really
Oh
action,
boy.
though.
yeah, and we'll talk
I
about
thought
that.
the school
trust
fight
me.
was silly.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. But Joey, were you gonna say something about the romances?
Yeah, I mean there were definitely tons of them, but you know what though, like that's also high school. High school is so fickle in romance, and
Very true. Yeah.
you know oftentimes I thought it was pretty accurate to like, I mean, at least where I went to high school, everyone was dating everybody, and once someone broke up with someone, someone would date their ex, and like that would create weird issues, and like people just moved on, super quickly, and especially given the hypersensitivity of what everyone had been going through, like those kinds of situations just breed relationships.
Mhm.
I think the Dimitri pairing is probably my favorite one.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
All of them.
Oh man.
Because I think that one's just like it's just really funny how like how that developed as like, hey, like I guess we're kind of both losers, but I would never admit that that I'm a loser, and like you know, I guess you're actually kind of cool in the end. I really like that one a lot.
I totally forgot that was a thing. Yeah. Abby, how do you feel about the romance aspect, especially among the kids? Oh, Abby, if you're talking, you.
I'm sorry. I'm feeding the baby kitten right now.
That's okay. Baby kittens need a lot of attention. Don't worry.
It does. It's a baby, tiny kitten. Romance, like I said, I literally with Miguel, with Dimitri, and then Hawk, and then that kind of girl, and then the bully at school. I did not like. I thought it was very strange.
Yeah.
Do you remember when they kissed in the hallway?
Yes, I remember.
I specifically remember my brother because, like, this is like I think one of the first shows that all 4 people in my family watched from beginning, middle, and end. We do movies together, not shows. My brother literally goes, "That's wrong." So you know, it just was like we were not. I didn't really. Again, when it goes on CW, it loses me. Again, also with Miguel and pining over Sam, it's like I told you, I'm the friend who's like, "Bro, you're better than them. Leave."
Yeah.
So that's my thoughts. I thought the adults, like 40-something Facebook romance is so much more interesting.
Yes.
It's compelling because it's very humble and awkward, more so than the kids.
It's definitely deeper kind of thing. Like you can probably relate to that a little bit more. But all right, we've been saving it. Let's talk about it. Kreese this season.
Kreese? Let's talk about Kreese.
The big bad of this entire series. The man always behind the scenes, always making plans. Kreese, you know, he left off the last season where he had taken over Cobra Kai. And this season, he continues to not only instruct the students but get new recruits. And it's definitely interesting because they definitely give a lot more time to Kreese, which I was a little shocked by. They do a lot of flashbacks, and I'm like happy they did that. But I'll be completely honest with you, I don't really know how I feel about the flashbacks. So I'm super curious to hear how all of you kind of took what you all took away from those flashbacks.
The flashbacks were my favorite part of this whole season.
That's interesting. Keep going.
I loved it because I love Kreese to begin with.
Right.
Because I think he's he's a classic villain. He's just great. I love just his whole attitude and everything. I mean, I think he has a lot of personality and he makes a great antagonist for this kind of thing. And I remember hearing that Martin Krove who's the actor that plays him, he'd always had this backstory in mind for Kreese, where he's a Vietnam vet who couldn't handle losing the Vietnam War, so now it broke him. It gave him this complex of, you know, victory at any cost, failure is not an option. And I love that they finally canonized that. They made that real, where it's like, no, let's work with him and build this whole thing up. And like I've been saying, everybody gets a little something. So you see his humble beginnings, where it's like, you know, what a shocker. He's the guy getting picked on. He wants to do the right thing. He wants to do good. And what a surprise. He's got a real piece of shit father figure honing him into a living weapon. And like it starts out as like, oh, this is kind of neat. We're going to see where Kreese is going. And then we're in Vietnam. And he refuses to blow up an encampment because the explosion would also kill one of his guys. And they all get captured, and now they're in a bamboo cage. And I'm like, this is Karate Kid, right? Like, we're still watching this, and they have to just the whole death fight sequence. Like, I started watching this season. Like, I watched like the first episode just one day, I think after work, because I was like, oh, I should get caught up on this.
Sure. And
then the next day I was like, all right, let's watch some more Cobra Kai. And I watched the whole season. That's second time.
Let's go mark that binge.
I burned all of it in one night. And when I got to that point where he's fighting the CO and he tells him like, oh yeah, by the way, your girlfriend's dead and I never told you because I needed you here. I'm sitting there like on the edge of my seat. I'm like, oh, get him, Kreese. What's gonna happen? And then they're fighting, and right before the camera cuts to it, I'm like, oh, wait a minute. I bet you that pit's full of cobras. And the camera cuts, and it's a pit full of cobras. And I was like, I started applauding. I was like, perfect.
That was awesome.
This is so perfect. I love this. I love everything about this. That's why he made it Cobra Kai. That's why it all happened. It was like, it's super cheesy. It's super in your face. I loved every second of it. It was great. It gives a lot to Kreese as an antagonist. But then we get back to the present, and it's like, oh yeah, but he's still a crazy piece of shit. He has a lot going on with him, but he's still the bad guy. Don't forget.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Look at this hamster. Don't forget, he's the bad guy.
Yeah. And anyone else? How did you all take those flashback scenes? I know Abby said it was basically MASH, but whoever wants to go, feel free to share their thoughts.
First of all, I think everyone loves Kreese as a villain. Everyone wants to know, like, what makes Darth Vader, like, what about his past? And oh my gosh, like, he has a past. Like, that's, if we want to talk about who gets the PTSD, it should be this guy. He lost his friends, like the people that were in war with him, and he had to fight one of them, I think, right? From what I remember. Yeah. So, like, oh my gosh, he was put through a lot when he was captured. I actually really I really enjoyed those scenes. We got to understand why he is the way he is. What made him like the big bad guy, and I enjoyed those flashback scenes probably the most. I found those one of the most enjoyable parts of the whole show, in all honesty, the whole season.
Wow, high praise.
Yeah, I think I'm going the opposite direction with that whole section. I personally couldn't care less where Kreese's bad behavior comes from. He was the villain, has always been the villain, and never needed more than that when it came to Kreese. I felt like they were just looking for more places to fill story and to do more filming. I don't necessarily think that we needed that backstory of Kreese to appreciate Kreese for who he was.
Sure.
So for me, like, I could have done without it. Was it cool to watch? Yeah, it was definitely cool. Like, I just felt like it felt like a filler episode. I feel like almost like we're watching an anime sometimes with the way they're trying to like give us backstory on every single character on some kind of level, and they're having trouble fitting it all in.
Just
but
Robbie sitting on Namek.
Right, exactly. It's just that's what it feels like sometimes with this series, and I think they're doing too much to try to give each character their full arc when I don't necessarily think that they need them.
Just to make a quick rebuttal off of that, I think season 3 was very much Kreese. Like, season 1 was pretty much Johnny. Like, it was like the Johnny season. Season 2 was Danny, and then this season was Kreese. And that's why I liked the flashback so much, because like we see Kreese in the previous movies, but we don't really know his backstory. This kind of like gave us the backstory for Kreese, and we saw.
Does it really make you change your opinion on Kreese at all?
It does. It kind of makes me understand why he became a villain, because not many times you see a villain and you get to see his past and what caused him to get to that path. Now we understand why he's on the path that he is, and why he's so strong-willed, and why he's so forceful with Cobra Kai. And I don't know, it didn't make, he's by no means a relatable character, because no one can be as evil as him. At least none of us that are on the podcast.
At least not in the Cobra Kai universe.
Right, exactly. But I mean, we don't really get to see like a villain's past, and we don't get to really see a villain like his memories and like what happened to him.
Sure.
And it was just like pretty cool to see his point of view.
No, I do get where he was coming from though. Like I fully admit, I like the flashbacks just because I like John Kreese. Like whenever Kreese is on screen, I'm happy.
Love John Kreese.
I'm having a good time. The whole bit where where he pulls out the hamster. The second that hamster came out loud, I went, "Oh fuck!"
I hated that.
Kreese is holding a small animal.
Oh my! All right, Abby, you have the floor. Tell us how you feel. I just want to say I love this back and forth. So keep going, please.
I
go.
left the room. I mean, literally fostering an animal right now as we're on this podcast. But like, that was so. It's just like we know he's cruel. He's like broken the law. Just add animal cruelty onto Kreese's list.
No animals were harmed.
Kreese is going to do something unfortunate to this animal. It's just a question of when.
And it's a snake. Yeah, I just it was just nasty. And then with I have to say though, I'm curious to hear from y'all. The production value of Vietnam.
Oh yeah, it was. I was gonna
was
say. I was about to say
rough.
that it was like they definitely spent all the budget on going to Okinawa, and they were like, "Wait a second, we have to film in Vietnam. All right, we don't got the budget. All right, get some trees. They got the bamboo sticks, the costume store, right? Like it was.
Slap the Ludwig filter from Instagram on it. Make it look old.
Yeah, the sepia filter.
The production value definitely wasn't there. I'll 100% agree. But
I liked the guy they got to play young Kreese though. He was pretty good.
I thought he was pretty good. And I think the performances overall were good. But Abby, I know you're going to say something about the flashbacks.
The flashbacks. Like I do agree with where it's like I do like seeing why so and so is the villain. Why did we like Anakin Skywalker? I want to see that lead up. I did like that lead up. But this, it just was like, and here's my take. I don't know about y'all. As family I have like military people in my family. It's interesting when you're talking about prisoners of war, because it's also like definitely Kreese's PTSD, which we've talked about. And as a military vet, that has not obviously gone unchecked. And then he has not had the proper resources, which is a statement to, remember we talked about when he was in the homeless shelter. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that is interesting to be like, okay, it's not his fault, right? But then at the end of the day, you have to stop saying like it's someone else's fault. It's someone else's fault. It's like at the end, doesn't he shove the guy over, right?
Right. Yeah.
So that's his choice. And so it's like all this bad stuff happened, but like you're the one who pulled the trigger.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's why.
So that's my take. And I do, like I said, I was like, is this what did they do to prisoners of war? I don't know. Probably not this.
Just make them kung fu fight over a big snake pit.
Exactly. Truly, probably historically accurate.
Yes.
So a little silly.
And yet, as horrible as he is, that scene where he looked out for Tori, there's, I
agree.
He's a great, horrible villain. He's great. But there's part of him that still, watches over his own.
There's parts of him that are admirable, and that's what I think makes him compelling.
And even when he was younger, and when he was captured with his friends, he was watching over them, and arguably he had to push the one guy into the Cobra pit. But I mean, 30 or 40 years later, I don't know how many years ago it was. He looks over Tori, and there's just part of him that's sort of redeemable. He's a completely unredeemable character, I think, but there's part of him that's more he's got some good in him, and that's why he's kind of like the Darth Vader of the series.
I don't know if y'all have ever heard of Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, which is a comedy show, but they have a great quote. It's a musical theater show, so I don't know if it's up any of y'all's alley, but they have a quote that's called I'm the villain in my own story, and it's about how she right? She's like, I thought I was the hero. I was doing all these right choices, but then I look in the mirror and I'm like, why am I wearing the villain outfit? That's kind of Kreese, where it's like he thinks he's Captain America in his head, 100%. I think
he definitely thinks he's doing. He definitely thinks he's doing the right thing. Otherwise, he wouldn't be so full of conviction. I'm so it's so interesting.
He's got standards.
Yeah, it's interesting to see how everyone kind of sees it. I one thing that stuck out to me was what Mark said, where he said, "Hey, it actually does play into the whole part where who your father figure is, who your mentor is, or what have you is a huge theme of the show, and I actually hadn't thought about that, how it continues that, right? It continues that that kind of through line through the entirety of everything. At the same time, definitely the production value was like a little like, all right, guys, but I think it was like weird too, because again it touched on the whole PTSD like theme a little bit, but then they never like fully explore it. It's just like, again, we touch on it, and like kind of like what Mark was saying, like he goes through some serious stuff there, and then we go back to over in the present day, and we're having the great adventures where Johnny decides to literally light Miguel on fire in hopes that his legs work. Yeah. It's like wait a second, we're again, it's a big tonal thing. And so right. I think in isolation, the backstory certainly works. It's just, it goes back to the whole thing of the show where it's just like, it's a little inconsistent, and sometimes things either move too fast or we don't explore the character journeys enough to make them more meaningful, at least to me. I think that's the true weakness of this season. Like, there's a whole bunch of things that happen where I'm like, yes, that's great, but I would have loved to have seen a bit more put into that. Like, I think Hawk's arc is amazing. I actually would have wanted to see more and how he goes through that transformation. And same thing with what's called we mentioned earlier, Danny, when he goes to Okinawa. Like, Danny is very passive in that. Like, he just gets everything given to him instead of him like outwardly earning something and kind of learning it, right? And I think that to me is the overall weakness of this season.
I think that was perfectly said.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I kind of like that contrast though. Like, everything in the show is just elevated.
Sure.
And I think there's definitely a charm to that. It makes it feel kind of like a little bit of a throwback, which I think is what they're going for.
Yeah, I unquestionably I think so. And we talked about it earlier, but let's just throw it out there. That ending, right? You know, we spent the entire season learning about Kreese, seeing all the character paths converge, and then we finally get it where Johnny and Daniel team up on, bro. What a sequence! Oh my
awesome.
god!
I wanna re-edit that in with Dragon Ball Z sound effects. Like when Danny goes, "You sent them to my home," I'm like, whoa! Like, I got chills. I'm like, okay, here we go. Like, it's happening.
It was so good. It was so good. But yeah. Tell me reactions to that final scene.
I loved it.
Perfect.
Two powerhouses confronting the big bad guy. Kind of like an Anakin Obi-Wan team up against Sidious. Uh-huh. Wow, just
all roads go to Star Wars.
Yeah.
I started that with the beginning of the episode, and you can't seem to get away from it now.
But Joey, listen, man.
I love the image of buff-ass Kreese. Like, the Emperor takes his hood off, and it's just John Kreese. Good, Anakin.
Listen, Padromi,
kill him.
Padromi, just like at our watch parties, man, you set the tone from the beginning. You know.
It's crazy because, like, perspective, right? Kreese is like how many years older than these two, and he's still whooping that ass. Like,
at least 30.
Yeah.
Come on, bro. Like, my man's like, on AARP, just like throwing them around. It was crazy. It shouldn't be that difficult.
It was a great.
He could hold his own.
Yeah. I even like that part too, where I think it was this season, right, where the owner of the plaza gets like those two like enforcers.
Yeah, because Amanda tries to pay him. Triple the rent to get him kicked out.
Yeah, and we're trying to shake him down, and he was just like, all right, or whatever. It's just implied that it was not even a problem for him. And I think that was awesome.
Yeah, my man came back with a busted nose.
It was awesome. The only thing that I didn't like about that last scene where they team up is the Robbie being there. It's like, all right, Robbie, come on, like, Robbie, come on, man. I didn't care for it, but I understand how it fit in narratively.
You were supposed to destroy Cobra Kai, not join them.
Oh my god!
You're my son, Robbie.
You are so right.
Oh my god!
Right. Robbie's just an awkward character, so whenever he's in a scene, it's like, all right, kid, like, you're really boring of a character. You have really big angst with your dad. Just like, get over yourself.
Now I'm just curious, can we one-to-one the characters from Cobra Kai?
Don't spoil this. 3 competition.
There has to be some sort of a list out there or a diagram. If not, we should probably create it.
We're back to TV tropes, Adam.
We're back to TV tropes indeed.
Oh no.
All right. Before we get into some of the technical aspects, and then we'll finish this off, we have to talk about that last fight scene too at the LaRusso home, because my God, if you thought the high school battle was a gang war, like this shit.
Oh my gosh.
This shit was like was an actual war. Like my God. I that's what I say. I did think the beginning of it was hilarious, where he's like, "I didn't know you have a cat. We don't have to get the guy gets thrown through the window."
Yeah.
I was like, all right, well, I guess if there's anything that says do not take this seriously, that was it. Because my God, the amount of force you need to throw someone through a window was like, okay, you know what, just go crazy. And trust me, they went crazy. So tell me how you all felt about that war at the LaRussos.
Yeah, that fight was just that fight was just out of control from the beginning. Like, I mean, and of course, like, it's so tough because, like, man, I couldn't fathom that shit going down at my house. Like, like, what if I was that age and I had a fight at my house? My mom, I'd be more afraid of my mom than anything else that any of those kids would have done to me in that moment. Like, that was just like, that's just no regard for anything. It's just so crazy how he just gives no fucks.
I just want to say, random side note, with the cinematography and the camera work, that was all done in one piece. That was impressive.
Yeah.
It was very impressive. 100%.
Really?
Fight choreography.
That was really cool.
The show is very
Arguably
well
my favorite fight scene out of all the seasons. Like, it was just, like, the way that the camera work was, and all of the like how it was done in one scene. That was just blew me away.
That's really cool.
Mark or Abby, how'd you feel about that? The war at the LaRusso residence?
I had a similar thought. I was like, my mama would kick my butt. Like,
definitely.
My
Don't put him through the coffee table, not the coffee table.
I was like, oh no.
Not the window in the rock garden.
Oh, the rock garden.
These kids are in high school. Like, don't they have homework? Like, why are they like
what is their homework
going
now?
on? Like,
Someone in juvie right now is the real question.
Listen,
when they're in Cobra Kai and when they're in the dojos, they're fighting. When they're in high school, they're fighting. When they're at people's houses, they're fighting. Like, when do they have time to actually do homework?
It's a valid question. Listen, man, they definitely got that. They got that AP credit for doing karate or something. That had to be it, because there's no way they had this much time to dedicate themselves to this craft. My God.
It's like Ned's declassified school survival guide. Like, they don't get anything done except for, like, cause some issues.
Ned's declassified school survival guide, but every time he tries talking to the camera, he gets kicked in the head.
Basically.
So true.
Basically. I agree with you guys, too, that the choreography and the camera work were so good. But go ahead, Abby. I know you're going to say something.
I was just going to say that I was going to retweet. I was like, that one shot, like, I remember sitting up on my couch and being like, ooh, because I know that, again, someone who's done stage combat, like, the planning, the timing.
Yeah, it's so difficult. Like, I this is, again, side tangent, but, like, for the average moviegoer, I don't think anyone understands how difficult it actually is to do like any sort of action scene. Like, if you look back at some of the stuff that Jackie Chan does, where he performed all those stunts, some of those stunts could take months to shoot, not a day. Months to shoot, kind of thing, just to get it perfect.
Yeah.
So I really want to applaud the entire production, and as well as all the actors and stunt people in it for getting it right. And they really sell the blows too. Like, obviously no one like actually was hopefully getting that hurt, but they really sell it super well.
It's a good fight choreographer.
Exactly.
It is a tell of an excellent fight choreographer.
And this is TV too, which really says something as well, right? This isn't like a movie choreography like you would see in The Raid or even some of the Captain America movies. Like this is something that you see on TV, and really shows. And in some ways, they kind of had to do it, right? If you're a show about martial arts, your martial arts scene better be good. Yeah. So
these are all young kids. Like they did a great job.
Absolutely, yeah. I really want to hats off to the choreography team, everyone involved in doing, because a scene like that is so complicated. There's always only so many times you can throw someone over and break the coffee table. Like it really is difficult. So I really want to give a hats off to them. I think we're all in agreement that was a great scene. We also saw Hawk. He saw the error of his ways. You know, I guess he had his Darth Vader moment where he realized what he really had to do. So it was really awesome to see. I really want to give hats off to them. And we also pointed out this earlier too, that seeing not Amanda, Samantha go back to like the dojo area, and like that's where she kind of like redeems herself a little bit and gets that strength and confidence back, was very cool to see as well. Okay. All right. So before we get to our final thoughts and everything, I do want to talk about some of the technical aspects because those are part of it. Was there anything on the technical side, whether it be soundtrack, cinematography, set design, anything that really stood out to you? Because I'll be honest with you, outside of the action scenes, and we already talked about Okinawa, like none of it really stood out to me that much.
No, it was pretty. It felt weak. I think Abby said before, like all the budget was spent on Japan, and then it was just like meh the rest of the way through. Like I wasn't really impressed by much of anything.
Agreed. Yeah.
Well, I
you
like
could tell where the money went.
Yeah, I like the flashback scenes personally, and I did like a little bit of like Danny going back to Japan to like find himself again. But yeah, I guess it kind of felt a little flat in this season.
Yeah, I mean, I told you Japan was awesome. Music, they do a good job of like, and I think that's Johnny's love for music. That sometimes just shine through. There wasn't anything super standout. I did send this to y'all. I don't know if y'all remember. So technical stuff. I think it technically is narrative. The meme I sent y'all of what was it? His message to Allie.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a PA or a production or a narrative person wrote that out.
Right.
So that is a technical aspect of production, and that is so cool. Where it was like, "I miss you. How did you feel about the 2007 recession?" I've been thinking about. It was just very well. So there's like their attention to detail sometimes can be absolutely incredible and hilarious. So that was one detail I had to point out. Like whoever wrote that, like,
oh yeah, it was
just
funny.
A meme.
Even just the comedy writers of the show in general. Like I still remember that part where Johnny called WebMD Wemd.
God,
Johnny,
yes.
come on, bro. So it was definitely a highlight of the show like that. And I just thought about this too. There was Oh, go ahead, Padromi. Go ahead.
How about how Johnny always forgets how to charge his electronics?
Oh yeah.
Oh my god.
Like repeatedly throughout the whole series.
Doesn't he have a scene with his computer or something like that where he's like it died and he's like, did you charge it or something like that?
Yeah, he goes to the pawn shop. He's like,
he tries to sell it back.
Yeah.
Oh, what an idiot.
Pawn shop guy is hilarious too. No, the one thing that I want to mention before we get to our closing thoughts is I literally just thought about it when Johnny and Allie go to like the carnival or whatever. I actually felt like that was pretty good because it wasn't like CG or whatever. They're actually at a carnival. I'm pretty sure there's even like fireworks and the whole Ferris wheel. I was like, okay, this is actually pretty well composed. But yeah, you could tell a lot of it seemed like it was either on a sound stage or it just wasn't kind of flat, boring cinematography in a lot of ways. Yeah. All right. So we talked a lot about Cobra Kai. We're getting to the end here. Final ratings and just like closing thoughts overall. Of course, we'll go in order like we usually do. What did you think of this season? What were the weaknesses? All that other stuff. Summarize it for the people. Starting with you, Mark.
I really, like I said, I really like this season. I still think season 1 is the best quality-wise, but in terms of my personal enjoyment, I think 3 was my favorite. It had a lot of my favorite moments of the series thus far. I mean, you had the flashbacks, you had that, really it was that fight at the end that sealed the deal for me. Because you see so many storylines coming to a head at that point.
Right.
And it's just dramatically, I feel like they really did a good job. If you look at this as almost like a 3-act structure, it's like season 2 left everybody at their lowest point, and now we're building, and then season 3 ends just leaving you hungry for season 4. And I think that's what they aimed to do, and I think they accomplished it. So I really, really dug this season. I liked it a lot.
What would you give it a rating?
Rating? I don't know. That's tricky with a show. I guess on average, if we were to do like spill scale, I'd say full price. I think it did what it set out to do. It did it well. There were some hiccups here and there, but overall, it's good watching. I'm really impressed that this show has gone on this far without any major crap ups. There have been a few dips here and there, but nothing that has ever made me say, I don't think I'm coming back for the next season.
Sure.
And I think that's kind of rare with streaming content.
For sure. All right, Andrew, you're up.
So just to wrap it up, season 1 was definitely more Johnny based. Season 2 was about Danny. Season 3 was definitely Kreese, and I liked season 3 way better than season 2. Definitely more interesting. Like what Mark said, I think season 1 was just done better. Personally, I liked season 1 the best. But season 3 definitely is hyping me up for season 4 with the tournament coming up. If I was to give it a rating, it'd probably be solid 7 out of 10. Definitely enjoyed it. I wish there was just some more fighting scenes. I felt like they saved all the action for the end, but I mean that's pretty much to hype us up for season 4, which I understand, and I just enjoyed it.
Okay, what would you give it rating wise?
7 out of 10.
7 out of 10. Okay, all right. Padromi, the biggest Karate Kid fan here. I'm sure this season meant a lot to you, considering you saw everything kind of come back from the old series. So, what are your thoughts, man? Closing thoughts.
Yeah, I think they do a really good job playing on the nostalgia factor. I feel like that those bits were what kind of helped me get through this season. I actually struggled to finish the season because I was just so not enjoying it. First off, my rating, I'm giving it a 6 out of 10.
Okay.
It's definitely the lowest for all 3 seasons for me.
Mm-hmm.
One being the best so far, maybe because of how pure the nostalgia was in the first season. But I really did enjoy all the nods again to the traditional movies. The revisiting of Ali, I thought they did a really good job with that.
Yep.
I think going back to Japan was a nice touch. I just feel like they're spending too much time filling stuff. Like I just feel like a bunch of filler episodes, and I don't feel like we made tremendous progress in the story that they're trying to get to. But I think, as everyone keeps saying, like this has been a build up to what happens in the next season. So I actually have, I think, really high expectations for this next season as a result of how this one went.
Totally fair. Abby?
I am similar, where we're season 1 still for me, Chef's Kiss. That's my number 1.
Yes.
But this over 2 by far.
Ooh.
And I don't know why.
Okay.
I don't know. I agree. I think it's 1, 3, 2 as of right now for me. I liked it. I think we've talked about this. I want camp. I'm fine with camp. I like fandom. I like paying homage to fandom. I think it does what it needs to do. It turns my brain off. And I can watch people fight, and it's fun. And there's some sweet family moments here. I hope to God they do not go longer than next season. Has it been confirmed for a season 5?
I don't know if it's been confirmed.
I don't know how they would do it after season 4.
Yeah.
But they might, because wasn't it
impressed.
the number 1 streaming over for Netflix?
Yeah, for a little bit.
It's huge.
Yeah.
It's because Stranger Things has been taking so long. This has handily filled the void.
I heard. Yeah,
it hits every demo. Everybody loves it.
Yeah.
Oh,
I don't know where else they would go after season 4 though. They have the tournament coming up. Once that's over, where else would they go from there?
I would respect them a lot if they said, "Hey, season 4, if assuming the tournament does happen next season, which I assume it has to. If they do the tournament and then they say, "All right, that's it, Cobra Kai is over," I will be surprised and impressed. But given how popular it is.
Yeah, and I hate though, the part 1, part 2, I do have to say the Harry Potter Hunger Games.
The Deathly Hallows effect.
The Deathly Hallows. If they try to do that, I'm gonna be like, At least
No, they
I see through
shouldn't.
that.
I've got this creeping
That would
feeling that that's what
really
we're
be
heading to.
stretching it. That would be stretching it too much.
Padromi, you were about to say something? Go ahead.
Yeah, season 4 is delayed. It's supposed to come out in May, but they're saying it might come out at the end of the year now.
That makes sense.
Sad face.
Yeah. So, Abby, what was your rating overall?
No, my rating, I feel like I'm like a B+. I know I'm not getting something like amazing, Emmy Award winning, but I'm having such a fun time that I'm not thinking about that.
Definitely. So, great thoughts overall. I share many of the same sentiments. To me, I think like if I started this show just completely turning my brain off, I would have enjoyed it so much more. But like the entire time I was watching it, I was like, come on, guys, this is like, you can't do this or that. It was only like once the show was done, I was like, okay, this clearly doesn't take place in reality, and I should just treat it that way, like turn my brain off. I think that's the ultimate way to really enjoy it. We've gone over a lot of things that it does very well. Of course, Johnny, Danny, a lot of what they have to go through, Kreese, a lot of those kind of character arcs and their interactions, whether it be going to Okinawa, whether it be talking to Allie, whatever it is, all that stuff is great. I love seeing Hawk, and I think Miguel does a lot of good stuff. The choreography, especially at those two ending fight scenes, and I, again, want to give huge props to that, especially in a day and age where it's so hard to end a movie on a high note, or a series, I suppose, by extension. They really knocked it out of the park there. But for me, the biggest weaknesses of the show is that there are so many times where I wanted more out of it, whether it be Hawk's arc or whether it be Danny being in Okinawa. There's something there, and it's so good, and I want them to just do it perfectly instead of like great or just good and not great kind of thing. So I definitely feel like that's the weakest part of the show. And at the same time, too, we talked about before, from a technical side, nothing super spectacular outside of the choreography. The the thing that impresses me the most consistently is the character work for some of them, at the very least. Sorry, Samantha. It always surprises me where they go, and sometimes just how they characterize things. And then for a show that's about reviving an old 80s movie that not everyone has seen, it's amazing that it's able to pull that off. So overall, as much as I do think I didn't like the season that as nearly as much as season 1 or season 2, I probably still give it a low matinee. And I still think it's a good show. Like I said before, as if you go in just turning your brain off, you're gonna have a great time. It's gonna be amazing. You're gonna have an awesome time. So I definitely think that that's how it should be approached. Okay, so before we go, of course, appreciate all of you coming on. But I just want to give you all that moment to give any shout outs, or if you want people to follow you, definitely plug it here. So as always, we start with Mark.
Yeah, I don't have anything to plug, but it's always fun doing these.
Hell yeah, man, rock on. Andrew?
Shout out to Austin Hicks. Surprised you haven't watched this show yet. Please do. I feel like no, he hasn't.
Oh, that's gonna.
We have got to get Austin on this show. Austin, you're way too late to the game. Shout out to my girlfriend Jane. You haven't watched the show yet either. Please watch it. Yeah, thank you, Adam, for having me on again.
Always, man. Always a pleasure to have you on. Padromi, the voice of the people.
Not much to shout out. You can hit me up at Padromi on most social media. But yeah, thanks again for having me.
Always, man. It's been a pleasure. And Abby?
I am the ABBY_Sherlock, like Sherlock Holmes, on all social media platforms. But this was a blast. I always love this. It's super fun. We just shoot the shit. And we geek out, and I really appreciate it. Thank you for having me, Adam.
Of course. And I listen. If anyone, we should be all be thanking you for your dedication to doing this. Abby was stuck in LA traffic, or I should say the Valley traffic.
Pulling over with her car.
Yeah, pulled over. She has like a baby kitten that needs attention, but she's still giving us all that great insight into the show.
Do I name him after Cobra Kai?
I mean, if you're feeling that strongly.
Oh my god.
I mean, at that point, wouldn't you just name him after Star Wars, though? Because they're basically the same.
Oh!
I'll send y'all a pic. I don't know. We might have a little Johnny on our hands.
Oh my god! Here we go. That's gonna be the legacy of these reviews. That there's a cat named after Cobra Kai.
Name him Crane Kick.
No, Eagle Fang definitely would be.
Eagle Fang.
Yeah, just the best name.
I can't do that.
Yeah, thank all of you for coming on once again. For anyone who actually bothers to watch this after 2 hours, of course, thanks to you. If you want to follow me, you can follow me on Twitter at Adam_bomb with 2 M's. If you for some reason want to follow me on other social platforms, that's usually my username. I'm not active anywhere besides Twitter, but appreciate it all. And until we get to either Cobra Kai season 4 or whatever else we decide to watch, we'll keep you posted. Hopefully it doesn't take as long to get the next episode out as it did for this one. Apologize for that. But hey, we're all living our own lives. So until then, take care of yourselves and peace, everyone.
Bye.
Later.